I'm really happy to welcome back into the studios U.S. Senator Roy Blunt. Senator, good to see you again. Thanks for coming in the studios.
Hey, Mike, it's good to be with you. Thanks for letting me come by today.
Oh, anytime. And you were in and around Columbia today, specifically taking a look at some of the energy needs for the state in particular. Kind of give us kind of a synopsis of what you were doing and what you find out today.
Well, one of the things I did today was I went to the OATS program, the senior transportation and others who aren't able to get themselves around, and just talk to them about the challenges they have with these high fuel costs. I think right here in the Columbia region alone, OATS has had to cancel about 50,000 individual trips this year just to make up the difference in what fuel used to cost and what it's cost over the last few months. I mean, gasoline's twice as high as it was in January 2009, and that has a big impact throughout our economy, and we just need better energy policies. Things like the Keystone Pipeline and going after the natural gas we have that's so abundant, much more than we thought. In fact, I think we could easily be pretty much energy independent using only North American energy sources. And the best of those jobs are the jobs where we create energy in our own country, and the next best is where we get energy from our neighbors and friends rather than from people who don't like us.
Now, obviously, we all know the president has rejected the Keystone Pipeline, saying it was for environmental reasons. Are there still environmental concerns about the project? Because that would actually go through this area pretty close to where we're at right now as designed.
Well, I can't imagine why we wouldn't do it. I mean, the Canadians are going to sell this oil to somebody, and they're either going to sell it to us, the most logical, closest buyer, or they're going to sell it to Asians, mostly the Chinese. And that's what they should do. Every other country in the world looks at its natural resources and they think economic advantage or economic opportunity. Only in the United States do you have any serious number of leaders that look at our resources, and the first two words they think of are environmental hazard. What's the worst thing that could happen? Here, what in the world is the environmental hazard of a pipeline? We have pipelines going through the entire country. The only reason that this one is different is it has to cross an international border. I mean, the president going to Cushing, Oklahoma, where they're already expanding that pipeline that this pipeline would hook into, and acting like somehow he's responsible for that expansion. It's the only part of this project he has nothing to do with. So we need common sense energy policies, and if we do that, the shortest path to more American jobs is more American energy. The impact on the marketplace comes long before the oil actually is available. Once you just announce to the world that we're going to use our American energy to our advantage as a country, and we're going to be buying less of it from other people in the next few years, and that has an immediate impact on the world market price of oil.
And the impact then, say, we're here in mid-Missouri would be what?
Well, the impact of getting 830,000 more barrels of oil to the refineries we get our oil from, our gas from, is a really good thing. The impact of developing things like natural gas. Natural gas we have more recoverable natural gas than anybody in the world. We know now. We didn't know that 20 years ago. And it's a clean burning fuel. It's a really efficient fuel if you, again, send it through pipelines as opposed to have to put it on a ship. And so natural gas that costs $2 in the United States, or less than $2 now, costs $24 in Europe, the same amount of natural gas. So to power our utilities, to power, because of that, our ability to be in manufacturing again and in utility-based industries like call centers and computer networks. I was at Carfax today. Lots of computers running over there as well, and lots of energy used at a facility like that, and lots of jobs.
Now, let me switch gears just a little bit. Your letter to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers this week, not happy with the rebuilding of other things, the Birds Point Levee. Been about a year now since the Corps blew that up. Mm-hmm. What do you want to see done with that levee in particular?
Almost exactly a year, and, part of executing the plan of using that Birds Point floodway, 110,000 or so acres of cropland flooded last year at about this time. The part of exercising the plan is if you're going to tear it down, you need to be confident you can get it back up. It looks like we may be fortunate this year. There's the rain and snow on the Missouri River particularly that flows into the Mississippi, not what it was last year. We may get by this year, but we need to get that Birds Point Levee back up to the 62 feet that it was above the 62 feet wall there. And at the same time, we need to be managing these river resources for what they are. They're great potential resources for us, both environmentally, but economically. If we use the rivers and the ports on the rivers in the right way, this can be a really big advantage for Missouri.
Are you happy with the reforms and the changes that the Corps is at least considering for the Missouri River in particular, because that affects so much of the state? What do you want to see the Corps do when it comes to that management plan of the river?
Well, the Corps on the Missouri River is I think, about as mismanaging the river as you could mismanage the river. You've got $90 million now going into the environmental plan, $13 million of it just to buy farmland for farmers who'd sell you the farmland so you could turn it into wildlife habitat, and $12 million to manage the whole rest of the river. Every levee, everything that you put into the river to try to direct the channel so that the levees are preserved, locks and dams. If you had locks and dams, it would all come into that category. And you've got $12 million for that and $90 million for the environmental part of what you believe needs to happen on the river. You know, when we had the flood last year, everybody was in full agreement. The number one priority of the river should be flood control. Here we are 1 year later, and boy, there's no evidence that that's the number one priority by looking at the Corps' budget. And I think the Corps has made a big mistake. We've increased this environmental part of spending on the river by 25% over last year and 60% over 2008, while the regular management of the river that had something to do with the way that these communities and roads and other things got covered up by water last year. The management of the river suffers, and it's not good for families, and it's not good for our economy.
Now, somebody may be listening saying, but you're in Congress, why don't you put a stop to that?
I'd like to. In fact, I had an amendment on the floor in the Appropriations Committee the other day, and even though I'm in the minority on that committee, it only lost by one vote, 15-14. I tried to transfer $40 million from the river environmental category. Still would have had over $50 million in it. Transfer $40 million to the fund that would come back and get these levees under control where they need to be, manage the river, do the things that I think allow us to use the river for the benefit of families and communities along the river, as well as the benefit of the river itself.
Now let me go back to energy. Callaway, Westinghouse, the Ameren projects here in this area. Westinghouse wants to build a series of smaller nuclear reactors and use some federal money, some federal grant money for that. What's your take on that project to develop more nuclear power in mid-Missouri, and are you in favor of the federal monies going to support that?
Well, I think small nuclear is a good idea. You know, there's a small nuclear reactor on the University of Missouri campus that is used a lot for research and things that reactor can be used for. But small nuclear is much more likely to happen than large nuclear. Frankly, with the natural gas prices where they are, that's going to be a very big competitor for any advance in nuclear. But if you get the nuclear where it's small enough and manageable enough, I think you're going to see more of it. So I think the combination between Ameren and Westinghouse, the competition for some federal money to see if we can't do nuclear in a smaller, smarter way is really a good thing. I'm truly am for all of the above. The president says he's for all of the above in energy, but nobody that works for him seems to know that. EPA doesn't know that. The Department of Energy doesn't know that. And the Department of Interior doesn't know it. And so we don't have an all of the above strategy, even though the president is saying that we ought to be doing everything we can to become more energy self-sufficient. I think he's right with that goal. I just wish the rest of the government knew about it.
Now, we've just got a minute or so left. The renewal is coming up for the main power plant that's been online for 20 years now. They want to renew it for another 20 years now. Is that a renewal that you want to see happen, at least while the other projects are being built?
No, I absolutely want to see the renewal happen. Electric power and the price of the utility bill means jobs. More American energy means more American jobs. The right priced American energy means a better American competitor. We need to do the right things for jobs, the economy, and Missouri families. And good, reliable power is right at the basis of all of that competition.
All right, Senator Roy Blunt, thank you very much for coming by the studio. It's good to see you again.